Hey guys, Robin here. Tonight we're going to make a beef roast. We're going to start out by making a dry brine and we're going to put it in the fridge overnight. So we'll start out with our salt. I'm just using regular iodized, any kind of salt. I have that backwards. We're going to use 1 tablespoon of that. I'm just going to put it into a small dish. Use anything that's convenient for you. There's our salt. We're going to use equal parts salt and rosemary. So I'm going for 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary. I'm just going to kind of break it up if I can. As you can tell, these needles are kind of long. So just break them up a little bit. And that goes in with the salt. Now we're going to add 6 cloves of garlic. So you can see I've got my garlic cloves here. They're pretty big. You've actually got a double one right here, but that's fine. To make these a little bit easier, if you hate just peeling them, that gets kind of old and it's really just difficult, monotonous, you can take a knife, get a nice wide one so that you've got plenty of space. I'm going to set that on that garlic, and notice I'm facing that that blade kind of downward. I'm going to take the heel of my hand right along here and just smash it on that knife, watching out, making sure again we're not hitting on the blade. So that's just going to look like that, and you notice it comes right off. So I'm going to do that with the rest of them, and then I will put them through my handy dandy garlic press. Just pressing them right into that salt and rosemary mixture. And we will be right back. And we're back. As you can see, I've traded my cutting board in for a roast rack, and I don't own any racks to actually put my roast on, so if you have a V rack, that would be ideal. I just used one of these stackable cooling racks meant for baking. Right here, I've got our roast. It is about 11.5 pounds, and it's a sirloin tip roast. I want that fat side up, so you'll notice there's this really nice layer of fat. Look for one that has that, because when we go to cook it, that's gonna render and make a really nice crust. So I'm gonna put that side up. I'm gonna take my knife, and about every inch or so, maybe an inch or an inch and a half, I'm gonna make a cut. So I'm just gonna cut into my roast, and I want my cuts to be about an inch deep. I'm gonna get a sharper knife and we'll be right back. We're back with a better knife. So I'm going to cut into that fat, cutting right through that layer, making a cut that is about an inch deep. So we don't have to get it in one smooth cut. Feel free to make strokes across that meat, and notice how it's just deep enough that later we can stick some cloves of garlic in there. So I'm going to repeat that up across this roast, making a few more cuts, and continue around the edge if you feel like. That'll give us a little more flavor. Just cutting into it. About good right there. Let's get one more. All right. So now we're gonna take that brine. You can see that I've got a whole pile of garlic on there. So we're just gonna mush it all together, get that salt nice and mixed up in there, get the rosemary mixed in. And this is really, we call it a dry brine, but it's just a cure. So there goes the dog. So as we rub this on our meat, we're gonna take a little bit, rub it into that skin, and this is going to denature some of those proteins. So what that's gonna do is keep it from seizing up so much. It's going to release a little bit of the moisture, which is going to make a really nice concentrated flavor on the outside. So we're really actually taking some of the moisture from that exterior of the meat and letting it combine with the saltiness and the garlic and the rosemary, and it's going to create a crust on there that's going to be amazing. All right, so that's probably pretty good for that side. I'm going to flip it over. You don't want to forget the bottom. And we're just going to cover that entire piece of meat. As I said, this is about 11.5 pounds. Anywhere in that 10 to 15 pound range is probably fairly good for this amount of brine. If you get any heavier than that, I might increase the recipe by 1.5 or double it. All right, that's about it. If you do have any cuts or just don't like the feeling of meat, or you have dry, wintry hands, I would recommend some gloves. That's going to keep that salt from burning your hands. So I'm going to just remove those gloves. Safety first. And we're going to take this roast and just put it in the fridge uncovered overnight, or for 8 to 10 hours. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey guys, welcome back. Our roast has been sitting overnight. We just got it out of the fridge, and as you can see, that salt has really soaked in and the juices have been marinating. It's got a lot of flavor. Now we're just going to add a little bit more flavor and get it ready for the oven. So again, I'm going to put my gloves on. That's going to protect my hands, keep them clean and from burning. So I'm going to take 1 tablespoon each of salt. So you can never have enough salt. We're going to make a nice coating on the outside of that. Full tablespoon of salt. 1 tablespoon of black pepper. So I just have pre-ground regular old black pepper. If you wanted to grate it fresh or grind it fresh, I'm sure that would be even better, but this will do. And 1 tablespoon of thyme. So that's already nice and small. Just put a tablespoon in there. And then we're going to do something a little bit different. We want 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So what this is going to do when we spread it on our roast is, of course, it's going to make it nice and crispy, but it's also going to serve as a kind of distributor for that heat. So when the heat hits that surface, the oil is going to distribute it across and make a nice crust. So we've got our olive oil. Just like yesterday, I'm just going to take my fingers and kind of pinch it through, mix it all up so that we've got a little pepper, a little thyme, all of it together. All right, I'm just going to coat that on the outside of our roast. So get a little pinch of it, distribute it across. Yeah, see that crust forming? This is going to be all that flavor packed in. Make it nice and crispy. Everybody likes that outside piece, and the great thing about these roasts is that most of the pieces, pretty much all of them, are going to have some of that outside on them. So everybody gets an outside piece. We're just going to flip it over. Look at all that. Put the rest. Rub it in. All right. That looks good. So I'm going to flip it back over. Remember, I still have that fat side on top. It's going to get nice and crispy. Now I'm going to pull these apart. That's where we made those cuts yesterday. And I've got 15 cloves of garlic here. So as we showed yesterday, you can either peel it yourself or if you just want to buy the pre-peeled stuff, it's very convenient, whichever you want to do. So I've got 15 cloves of garlic, and I'm just going to set them right down in between those cracks. So just distribute them kind of evenly. Use your own discretion. Be artful. We just want the flavor throughout the whole roast. So So I'm gonna stick that one in the corner. If you have big ones, feel free to go ahead and break them up and make them a little more manageable so you can distribute them more. All right. And remember, if you cut around the edges, don't forget to get in there. Let's see, I've just got one more. I might put it right up here at the top. All right, so now I'm gonna take these nasty meat gloves off, and I'm going to get 1 more tablespoon of rosemary. So last time I kind of crunched it up a little bit. This time I just want to leave it whole. So I'm going to take that, and you can put gloves on or not, just depending on your preference. But I'm going to take that and I'm going to kind of put it down there with the rosemary. So get it down kind of in between the cracks. We don't want this to char or burn. We just want it to add flavor. So you do want it down in between where that garlic is. This will open up a little bit, these cracks will, when it cooks, but it should still protect that rosemary and keep it from burning. So pack it down in there, make sure it's nice and cozy. If you've got a little extra, just see where you could put a little bit more. All right, and this is ready to go in the oven. I've got my oven set at 300. We're gonna cook it low and slow. So I'm just gonna leave it at 300 for, we'll check it in about 3 hours, see where it's at. And then we'll take it out and I'll show you from there. See you in a little bit. All right guys, we're back. I have the roast here. It's been sitting for a little while, so I'm gonna go walk you back a little bit in reverse order. As you can see, this has been out for about 30 minutes. I tented it in this foil, just regular aluminum foil, and I packed it in there nice and tight. That'll let the juices kind of sit and distribute that heat so that it's really evenly heated throughout and it'll be nice and juicy. So I'm going to unwrap this. It ended up being in the oven about 4 hours at that 300 degrees. I checked it about every hour or so, and if you notice that it's getting a little bit dry, what I would recommend is just take one of those gloves, take a little bit of olive oil, pat it on your hand, and then just pat it all over that roast. So that's gonna keep the outside from getting too dry, and that, like we talked about before, that's gonna keep that heat evenly distributed. So I've got my roast, it's been sitting. When I first took it out of the oven, I just have a regular digital thermometer. You can use one of the little round dial ones or just whatever you have. And we're gonna stick the probe in the end here, and you just want it to hit the deepest part of the meat. So think about where this meat would be the coolest. It's gonna be right in that center. So you want your probe to hit the center. You want your dial to hit around 135 to 140 when you take it out of the oven. If it's not ready yet, just pop it right back in. So that came to temperature. I covered it up, let it sit for about 30 minutes while I cranked my heat up on my oven to about 550. If your oven won't go that high, anywhere between 500 to 550, whatever the highest your oven will go is gonna be good. And I'm gonna pop this back in the oven just for about 10 or 15 minutes and get that outside nice and more crisp. So we'll see you when I take it out. All right, so we just got our roast out of the oven. It was in the oven at 550 for just 10 minutes. So it's got a really nice crust on there. It's all bubbly, nice and ready to go. If you have guests coming over, just leave it in its tent as long as you want, and then about 10 or 15 minutes before they get there, just pop it in the oven, nice and hot. We're gonna transfer the roast over. If it won't stick, transfer it to our serving platter. Move this out of the way. And cut into it. So, turn this around a little bit. And just cut see it flaking off. Nice and crispy on the outside. And as we get toward the center, it'll be just a little bit pink. Just how we want it. Make sure everybody gets a little bit of that crust and enjoy. See y'all.
Hold it. Say bye. Sit. Sit. Goodbye.